Hey everybody, it's Mike Jeffers, ChicagoJazz.com, live from the 2018 Chicago Jazz Festival. I have taken Talkin' Jazz out on the town here. Our first guest, our trial guest for episode 11 here at the Chicago Jazz Festival, the great vocalist Sarah Marie Young. I am so glad I talked you into being the first guest here live at the Chicago Jazz Festival in 2018. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thank you, Mike.
Definitely. So, I wanted to have you on the show for such a long time because you have so many things going on. You have so many cross-genre things going on. You're constantly playing in rock and pop and jazz and Latin and jazz and rock and pop. So, why don't we talk a little bit about what you have coming up? Now, you have the Oh Yeahs,
yes,
which is a all-female
It's an
band.
all-female acoustic group. So this is my Ride or Die group with Leslie Buchelman and Allison Arobia. So we play kind of a mix of our own tunes, which are kind of folky, jazz, pop, and then we do all kinds of covers that we love, from anywhere from Duke Ellington to REO Speedwagon, with the lush 3-part harmony and mostly acoustic guitar, ukulele. I play a cajon. Leslie plays a bunch of auxiliary instruments. So
the coolest thing I love about this too is obviously everybody watching this show is watching it on Facebook, Instagram, ChicagoJazz.com. You guys are constantly doing live streams of your shows on Instagram Live or maybe Facebook Live too, but you're constantly doing live streams. So it's like, I love that because I think that's the way you start building an audience. Like, I haven't been out to one of your shows, but I dig all your music because I'm sitting working. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Look at where they're at right now. So is that like a conscious effort? Or you're just having fun and all of a sudden it seems to start working?
I mean, we've been a group for a while, and we started booking shows, and now we're kind of rolling. We just made a record that we're going to release in January, and I think a lot of times we're just hanging out and we rehearse, and we're like, I think we should probably go live with this, right? Well, let's do that. And then that's what we do.
But you guys also do it live from some of the shows too.
Yeah,
I've seen, right?
I mean, we were at the Alice once, and it just happened to not be too many people there, and we just said, let's just go live, and we were applauding for ourselves after the songs. We just have so much fun.
But that's the kind of thing. I know I completely digress, but that's all right. It's my show. Who cares?
Yeah, do what you want. I'm the first one.
But that's the thing that I love is that I think that's the way people are going to start to build audiences and build awareness outside of just saying, hey everybody, I'm playing at this place or that place. It's like going live, and I think more and more clubs are going to be hip to that too. And since you're on the younger side of me, and you're way more hipper, so
I don't know.
But I mean, I think that's the way to go. So whether you're obviously doing it for a straight strategic marketing purpose right now, you're already onto something, so you might as well just go all in and do it. But I think the clubs are going to start to do that too, because I'm of the mind that people are going to discover you and then they're going to come out to see you play.
I think I think that is how it is. I mean, hopefully people don't just do things from their home on the internet or from a chair. I hope they do get out and be physical and go see live music.
Yes.
But of course, social media is such an important plays such an important role, and becoming really the main role of how you get people to notice you, and so we'll see. I'm really interested in seeing what the industry looks like 10 years from now.
Well, it's going to be completely that's another discussion I'm sure that nobody even knows about, right? But, well, I tend to think that as a musician, and you know this, and as you came up in music, maybe all of us just take it for granted that we're always in business for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. You're in business for yourself. And I think it's shocking to a lot of people that don't understand that, but you're in business for yourself. So I think the industry is going to change, but I think it's only going to give you more of an opportunity to be successful as yourself, rather than relying on anything else to push you ahead like it used to be,
Yeah.
So, sorry, I digress. All right, let's bring it all back.
Conversations.
All right, I'm bringing
Deep
it back.
thoughts.
Yeah, not with Mike
Jeffers.
Jeffers. There's nothing deep thoughting with Mike Jeffers. All right, so let's finish up with the Oh Yeahs, because that seems to be like a creative outlet that you're writing music for. And you guys have a regular gig.
Yeah.
The third Tuesday of every month at Soho House on the second floor. Is that the Alice Club?
It's called the Alice. And so the Soho House is, an exclusive club, but the Alice is open to the public. They have great drinks and food, and we're there every third Tuesday. Our next hit will be October 16th, and we have a lot of fun. So if you like harmony and a little bit of different styles and original music, of course, and lovely ladies, you can make your way out.
And that's right in the West Loop, so it's real easy to find. So it's
Yeah.
Soho House, Chicago. Now you also obviously perform with your own music and your own group as far as jazz goes.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit about some of your influences? Now you grew up in Indianapolis. You came up in Indianapolis, and you were into in music in school. I mean, were you?
I studied. I came to jazz late, but I grew up in a little Baptist church, so lots of hymns and songs there. And then I was able to go to a performing arts middle and high school, so that was all classical training.
Okay.
And I went to Indiana University for opera. And
No kidding.
and yeah, so I have classical training, and then I found my way to Chicago. I did not finish at IU, and
So were
found
you doing any of the jazz down there, like with David Baker or anything, or you
No,
were just
no,
on
I
the other
wasn't.
side of the campus doing?
I was doing classical. I was in a gospel, all gospel female group. So just from church, I stayed with the gospel style. I was with a all-female gospel group called Sojourner, and we traveled around a little bit. And then I quit school and I joined a band, a rock band, and like a pop
You
rock
quit
band.
school and join a
Yeah.
rock band. Make your parents proud.
I know. Well, my dad was a bassist, and he was like, "Well, just."
It is what it
Make
is.
sure, he always said to me, just know you can always, nothing is ever permanent. You can always just get out of something if you don't like it.
That's a good idea. That's it. So is that how you ended up in Chicago?
Yeah, I had done that band. I'd done a couple bands, and then I moved here just to move to a bigger city, and I was playing keys in a kind of a folk group.
Okay.
And then I decided to go back to school, so I got a scholarship to go to Columbia, and that's how I fell in love with the Great American Songbook.
Ah, okay. So really, you weren't doing any of that. I
No.
mean, maybe touching on it here or there or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
but you weren't doing any of that until you got to Columbia. So was it like, oh man, I really dig this. I've got to make up for like 10 years of not knowing this. So it's
Yeah,
like,
there was just the jazz program was bigger there, and it's Chicago jazz I had not really touched upon, and I just really fell in love with the music and just the art of song and how that as a vocalist, that's really what it is. You're like telling a story,
Right.
And I even said this at the performance at the Pritzker on Wednesday, that I just went through all the real books and listened to tunes and listened to all these singers and did all these transcriptions of just trying to sound and find
Yeah.
my own sound, and here I am.
well, you had to have some. Obviously, you had a lot of natural ability, but I think the hardest thing for a musician who's trained in opera or classical music is to get the feel, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
to get that feel, because you know the words, you can know the chord changes, you can know where to place your pitch and everything else, but that feel has to come. So
Yeah, that's an
did
instinct.
that come natural to you?
I mean, I'd hope to think that it's. I mean, I grew up, in church, and my father was a bassist, and we listened to lots of different music at home, a lot of Motown and rhythm and blues, and music is just such a big part of my upbringing. All kinds of music. So even my dad was it was really important to him for us to get any kind of training we could. So that, he was like, get trained, learn your voice, but also don't forget the meat and potatoes of music,
Right,
which is
right.
really the rhythm and the feel.
Right.
So, and the instincts. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I've held on to that through all that training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what
I
what
hope
was
so.
Well, I mean, as long as nobody's written like a thing, a review of you saying, if you want to hear how somebody swings like a lead balloon, no, I'm just kidding. She doesn't swing like a lead balloon. But that, you hear some of the opera performers, so that obviously was ingrained in you, and you got into that. So, what was the point where you went from, all right, now I'm learning this, I'm woodshedding, I'm like, holy cow, I'm totally into this, to the point where you feel real comfortable going, sitting in and playing gigs and starting to get out there on the jazz scene?
Columbia College really is a big network. I mean, a lot of the faculty are also performers, and there was actually a show at a wine bar that Carrie Johnsrud was singing at. Jason
Okay.
Ellis had also gone to Indiana University, so I knew him. And he said, come out, maybe you can sub for Carrie. He knew I was studying some jazz.
Okay.
So I went out there and sang some tunes, and from then on, the saxophonist Eric Allen,
Oh yeah,
he's
sure. I
the one
remember
that
Eric
he
Allen,
hooked
yeah.
me up with some gigs. He was the first one to hire me for some gigs,
Yeah.
some gogs.
Some gods.
So,
Amen.
the OES like to call it. Where's your next gog? And then I felt comfortable enough. But Columbia, they have ensembles, so
Right.
and so I had plenty of time to
Yeah.
sing songs, not in my key and improvise horribly.
You had a lot of good.
It still happens sometimes.
You had a lot of good places to try things out
Yeah.
without scaring an audience.
Yeah, I mean, it still happens sometimes.
No, that's hey. But so you're at Columbia. You just stayed in Chicago. Then you started playing professionally around town, and just kind of the natural way things go. Did you get into like the jobbing bands, and did you make some money doing that on the weekends and playing jazz and all that stuff? Is that how everything kind of matured through the process?
It is. Now I'm at a place where me and Guy have a baby, and I'm very.
She's married to Guy King, by the way, the guitarist.
Yeah, so we're just trying to figure out what the hell we're doing, and how the hell we're gonna do it, make it happen. So I'm, and also I've been in different scenes and I like to kind of vacillate between those.
Yeah.
So just kind of figuring out where I want to go next and what I want to do with my own music and with the Oyas, and gratefully the jazz scene has always been gracious to me and given me lots of opportunities.
Well, somebody like you, who's on the coming up through your generation, I should say. I was just talking to Marquise Hill about the same thing, and we were talking about how back in the day when Benny Carter or any of these guys, they grew up, they listened to jazz, they were influenced by jazz because that's what was happening. But you, coming up through the scene the way you came up, you were influenced probably by rock, by blues, by jazz, by funk, by R&B, by everything. So I really tend to think that nowadays there isn't really a genre like here's jazz, but it's more like here's Sarah Marie Young. I mean, is that how you feel when you're playing with your group? You're not just sitting figuring things out, right?
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think it's taken a really long time, and I think for a lot of artists, I mean, I can't speak for other artists, but that it's hard to actually say, especially if you do a lot of styles, unless you are like, you know what, I love jazz, and that's all I want to do, and that's my thing.
Right.
That's great, and that's wonderful. And I think sometimes it's difficult when you play a lot of different styles, and my husband has the same we have these same issues, to just say, I'm comfortable in my own skin, I do a lot of different things, I hope people take me for my voice and my musicianship,
Right.
and appreciate it. And you can't please everybody. There are going to be some diehard
you can't please
fans who
everybody.
are like, I don't want to hear her sing this, what I think is crap. Or I don't want to hear her. I mean, I've definitely encountered that, I sing high and loud.
Right.
And I can scream, and I also sing soft. And a lot of people are like, I really prefer when you don't scream. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I know that for my own creativity and my own heart and soul, I like doing both.
But you know what I love about the fact of that is that they feel comfortable enough to come up and tell you that.
Oh yeah.
They'll
be like, what? I want to even go into it, but. I just hope
You'll have
whatever
to come
it
to
is,
the hot dog stand. We'll have a beer and you can go into that.
Appreciate it, whatever it is, and in some way, as an entertainer, you want people to enjoy the music and be touched somehow by it.
Well, I just feel like the way the entire world is these days, as you're growing up, you're just influenced by a lot of things. Now, the other night you performed with Orville Davis's Chicago Jazz Philharmonic, insane show.
Yeah.
And talk about a lot of different styles happening in that show, right?
Yes.
But being down here at the Jazz Fest, I mean, we're right across from the Bean right there, and obviously there's a lot of casual listeners down here. And being down here last night for Kurt Elling, and then what you're about to perform, she performs with Steve Million and his Brazilian project. They're about to play over at the Jazz and Heritage stage here this afternoon, which, by the way, Steve Million is going to be on the show at some point in one of the next episodes, and we're going to talk about that. But we're talking about blues, we're talking about rock. You're doing this whole Jobim and speaking Portuguese and singing and everything like that. But there's so many casual listeners down here that I think that these days to push the jazz genre into one little thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because if people like it, they like it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. That's it.
Yeah. Agreed.
So when you're doing your next gig, which is going to be
Carrie Johnsrud right there.
The famous Carrie Johnsrud from episode 87. We have a huge show coming up October 13th.
Yeah.
She's going out of town for a little while on a little family vacation, but when she gets back, she's going to be at the Studebaker Hotel as part of the Chicago Jazz Orchestra's 2018-2019 season. They are doing a tribute to Nancy Wilson, and it's going to be the Chicago Jazz Orchestra with Bobby Wilson and Sarah Marie Young.
Yes.
So those are kind of big shoes to
and Roberta
take on.
Gambarini.
Oh, Roberta's coming
Yeah.
in because she's not on the
Maybe
promo.
she.
but
You know what? Maybe you have to cut it out. 'Cause-
No, there she is.
I'm like, maybe
You
she's
got
a
it.
surprise
You
guest.
got it. Nope,
I
you
just
got
gave
it.
it away. Yeah, so I'm very excited and honored to be doing that.
Was Nancy a big influence on?
I love
your
listening.
playing?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started listening to jazz, it was Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald, Nancy Wilson, and Dinah Washington, and Carmen McRae. And
Yeah.
The list goes on and on and on.
So that's going to be October 13th, Chicago Jazz Orchestra. Obviously, we're going to have more information on ChicagoJazz.com as we get closer. And do you have any other projects or anything we should talk about here coming up in the fall? Obviously, all the information is sarahmarieyoung.com, linked up below. The beauty of
Yes.
the internet.
Is it where will it be? Like right?
Just go like that, and I'll put it. Boom. There it is. Maybe I'll even put a bell with it. Bing. All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Great.
So do you have anything else coming up? But they'll just keep tracking.
Yeah,
your-
keep track of me online, and I play a lot of shows with So Far Sound Chicago.
Okay.
Which I just threw that in there.
Well, hey.
So you can just go to my website, see all that stuff, and the OES record's coming out in January.
That's what I was thinking of. I know we talked about something off camera, and that you mentioned it. So the OES are coming out with a recording in January.
Yes, very excited about
That's
that.
very exciting. Sarah, I'm so glad you finally are on the show.
Yes, thank you.
And when the new recording comes out by the OES, we'll have you down to the hot dog stand, and it sounds like it's going to be in the winter, so we'll have warm hot dogs and warm hot toddies
can't
or something.
wait.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Hot
something
toddies,
interesting.
hot buttered rum.
Oh, there it is. See? I'm in. You're in. Locked in.
All right.
All right, thanks so much. And as I always close this show out now, even though we're live here at the Chicago Jazz Festival, and I'm sure if I don't see you somewhere here at the Jazz Fest, hopefully I will see you somewhere out on the scene.